Hello and welcome to DreamDivorce.tv. This episode goes out to all the single parents out there, especially if you think that your relationship with your kids is not as good as you would like it to be. So that probably means everybody. As Father's Day was approaching this year, I didn't really give it too much thought. I mean, my father's been dead for 20 years, and I certainly didn't expect to get anything from the kid who most recently was in my life. Now I say the kid who most recently was in my life because the kid is not biologically my kid. I got married to the mother. The kid was 5 years old. We lived together as a family. I was dad between ages 5 to 10 or so. Then we split up and I was informed that I was no longer dad, that the kid did not want to call me dad. Nobody wanted to call me dad. And also that I was not going to be able to see him, which was awful. It was brutal. And if you think that that was crushing for me, you're absolutely right. I mean, I had given my heart to this young person at age 4 or 5, and I did everything between age 5 and 10. Cooked dinner and brought him to school and cleaned up a scraped knee and told him lies about the tooth fairy, all that stuff. And then for me to be completely ejected from that whole situation, I felt like I was not doing my job. I felt like I was breaking the promise that I made to this young person to be this kid's dad. But because I was biologically not his father, and because his father is nowhere in the picture, it's just his mom who gets to decide. And she gets to do whatever she thinks is the best thing. So as Father's Day was coming, no, once again, I didn't expect anything. Anything at all. Either acknowledgement or card or call from this kid who had once been my kid. And this kid who had once called me dad. So I know a lot of parents and a lot of kids struggle with this kind of situation. One person, you live with one parent, you kind of see the other one or you don't see the other one. Obviously, this is especially an issue for dads, considering that 85% or so of kids from divorced families live with the mom. So here are some tips for your family and for your kids that can make things easier. Number one, I know it's hard and I know you may be really pissed at your partner, and maybe that's completely justified. And that person is still your kid's parent. And the more, as long as it's safe, the more you can facilitate a continued relationship between the parent and the kids, it's going to be better. So one of the easy things that can mean is just to make sure that the contact is sustained. If your kids now live with you, make sure they call the other parent, visit the other parent, send them birthday cards, check in with them on holidays. You want to keep things as normal as possible. Number two, you can avoid a lot of stressful situations by not putting the kids in the middle. Don't ask your kids to take sides about who's right and who's wrong. They can't understand that. Even for adults, that's not easy. And try not to say negative things about your partner to the kids. Maybe you're divorcing that person and maybe you have a great reason, but that person is still going to be your kid's parent for a long time. And your kid, whether it's young or old, does not deserve to hear you say negative things about the other parent. Also, that means don't talk to your kid about what you're feeling about your divorce. I mean, you may feel close to your kid and you want your kid to understand, but your kid can't understand. Even if they're a teenager, even if they're in their 20s, this is their parent. And they are not going to be able to process well you unburdening your heart and opening up and saying, look, this is how I feel about the divorce. This is how upset I am. These are the reasons. Talk to somebody else. Talk to anybody else. But don't talk to your kids about this kind of stuff, because then they get caught in the middle. They feel like they have to take sides or they have to defend or any of that kind of thing. I made this mistake when my parents were divorced. I guess they made the mistake because even though I was like 19 years old, when I saw either one of them, all they would do would be to complain about the other person and badmouth them. And I wound up hearing the same story from both sides. And I guess that I tried to then help to bridge and try to help make things better, because with my dad I said, oh, mom didn't mean that like you took it. Or with mom I would say, oh, dad didn't mean that the way you took it. And instead of bringing them closer together, you know what it did? It made them both mad at me. Both of my parents, because they put me in the middle, because they were unburdening themselves with me, both of my parents then accused me of sticking up for the other one. So now I have two parents who are getting divorced, and both of them are angry at the kid. Another thing is to just keep an eye on your kid. You know your kid. You know his or her moods and their rhythms and how they express themselves. This is super confusing for them. And the best thing that you can do is to try to keep their schedules consistent, try to keep as much consistency, their activities consistent. This whole divorce thing and people moving out and maybe they have to switch schools or households, all that is really a lot for a young person to handle. Whether they're a little kid or a teenager, it's still a lot. The more things that you can keep consistent for them, which means meal times, bedtimes, activities, vacations or jokes or any of the things that you normally do as a family, you're going to want to try to maintain those as much as possible to give your child a sense of consistency while everything else is up in the air. And lastly, just like you are experiencing loss at this divorce, your children are also experiencing a great deal of loss in the breakup of the family unity and the family situation. Anything you can do, keep an eye on them, ask them how they're doing. If you feel like they're angry or withdrawn or sad, ask them, how's it going? What are you thinking about? Maybe they need a therapist. Yeah, maybe your kids need some help processing this thing that you need help processing. Yeah, there's no reason that a 10-year-old kid should be able to understand what's happening in divorce. I mean, I barely understood it. The good news is that there are a lot of resources, books and stuff on the web, therapists, life coaches, people that can help you, help your kid have the best divorce possible that you're having. It's your divorce, but of course it's not just yours. It involves your whole family. It involves your kids. Your kids didn't choose this. They need some help. The upside to bringing your children and the care for them front and center as you get divorced is that your kids will be healthier, they'll be happier, and 10 or 20 years from now, when everybody is adults, you and your partner will both have good relationships with your kids. Just like kids learn by imitation when they're toddlers and babies, and that's how they learn to talk and that's how they learn to walk. When they get older, they're learning important things about relationships by watching you and your spouse. Now, if you and your spouse are getting along great, that's all lovely. But if you're fighting and you're getting divorced and you want to do it in front of the kids, that's not so good. Try to shield them from the conflict. Try to, in front of the kids, find things to agree on, be interested in them, put them front and center, and you can still, as divorced and divorcing parents, prioritize and focus on the children together. You're both still their parents, whether you're married or not. They will benefit if you take that responsibility on and make it important. Something new has happened. My mom has kept in touch with my ex and with child because my mom is the grandma and she didn't want to give that up, and so even though I couldn't see or talk to him, she would keep in touch, and I said, yes, please go ahead, love this kid, stay in touch with this kid. I can't, but don't tell me about it. It's just too painful. This is what I said to my mom. It's just too painful. If you're going to see him, talk to him, if you get news, don't tell me because it eats me up inside and it's better if I just don't know. And then, surprisingly, I got a text or a call from my ex saying, hey, when your mom is here, do you want to come over? And I said, yes. Are you sure? And she said, yes. And so we did, and that seemed okay. And yes, eventually now, in the past week or two, that kid has actually come to my house for a visit. Now, as we've gotten reconnected, my ex said, well, she gave me a warning, and she said, be prepared, he's still mad at you. I didn't say anything. And she said, yeah, it's probably because of some things that I said. And I thought, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. We got divorced. She was totally freaked out. She needed to break things. She needed to break whatever was there between us, between me and the kid, the family situation. She needed to break it. And so she did. But now she feels more secure, and she feels like it's okay if that kid and I can see each other and start to reestablish our relationship. Whew. Along the way of those 5 years, I just hoped and prayed that our not seeing each other was more difficult on me than it was for him. But I really didn't know. So even though I have been newly in touch with this 15-year-old in the past month or so, I still didn't really think that Father's Day was going to be anything special. But then late in the day, I got a text from him with something hand-drawn, and here it is. It says, Happy Former Stepfather's Day. Now, when I got this, I had to laugh. I mean, he's not sugarcoating it. He's laying out right there for everybody to see exactly what our relationship is. It's honest, it's real, and yeah, it shows some intelligence. I guess I also laughed because even though he meant for those letters to look like balloons, to me they still looked like jelly donuts that someone had nailed against the wall, and then they're kind of slowly dripping jelly. So this story for me has a happy ending. I wasn't in his life the first 5 years. I was in his life from 5 to 10. I was not in his life from 10 to 15. Now that he's 15, I think I'm back in his life, and we're going to see what happens, and we're going to go from there. I am so relieved that we are here right now. This is DreamDivorce.tv. This is what we do, help to make your divorce a little bit better when it could be a little bit worse. And this topic right here, how to take care of your kids, how to make sure they're okay while you're getting divorced and afterwards, this is an important one. You can do this. Really, you can make this successful, and everybody can be better for it. I know you can. DreamDivorce.tv. Love your divorce for the rest of your life. Yeah, and your kids should think, wow, my parents did a good job when they got divorced. Yeah, that would be a nice model for them.